What is up, my fellow Sambarians? I feel like I haven't said that in a while. So, here we have a Sambar TV2. Okay, so I did make a video a long time ago, and I think it helped people out because it got quite a good amount of views, going over the 5th generation Sambar, KS and KVs, kind of seeing where stuff is at, you know, versus the van versus the truck. So I thought, if you are a future Sambar TV, this is a 6th generation. So 6th generation didn't start till 1999, later 1999. So in 99 you'll have a mix of KSs and KVs and a mix of TTs and TVs and TWs. So same with the trucks. KS is a truck, KV is a van, TT is a truck, TV is a van, and TW is also a van. But anyways, this is a TV. So obviously TT1 or TV1 is two-wheel drive, TT2 or TV2 is all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive. This one is full-time all-wheel drive, so it is a TV2. So here is a TV2. And so if you're new to Sambars and you're just getting into them, the 5th generation Sambars did not have crash impact zones. They didn't have airbags or none of that stuff. And 6th generation is when they started coming out with safety stuff. So the 6th generation Sambars are actually a little bit wider and a little bit longer, unfortunately. I'm not a fan. I like them as small as you can get them. So I'm going back as far as I can. As long as it moves and it's small, I'm happy. But if you want something that's a little bit safer and have more like newer amenities, I don't know, amenities, this is what you're going to be looking for. So you'll see that the front end comes out. It does like this nose. If it was a KV, it would just literally drop down at the front windshield, but they have extended the front end for crash impact and they've made them a little bit wider. So parts and stuff, some parts cross over, some parts don't, because obviously these vans are bigger. Like windshield visors, these do not commingle, although the back ones do commingle. They're the same size. I've figured that out. Different mirrors, different headlights, different corner markers. I am constantly having to cancel orders because guys with newer Sambars are trying to buy the older corner markers. These are completely different. They're not even the same. They don't even look the same. So get familiar with what parts look like so you're not buying incorrect parts in the future. Not only from me, but anybody who's selling Sambar parts. They are different. So let's kind of go over the TV, now that you know. Let's kind of go over the different, where everything is kind of located, because that's another thing I get asked all the time. Like, where's stuff at, and how do you figure out what engine it is, and all that stuff. So, all of the newer ones, 6th generation, they're no longer carbureted. So the carburetor is gone. So that's a question I get asked, like, how do I know if mine's carbureted or fuel injected? Well, your 6th generation is not carbureted. It's either fuel injected, naturally aspirated, or it is supercharged. But they're both fuel injected. So when you're getting like filters and stuff like that, it's all fuel injected parts. So that's what was kind of cool is, you know, they stepped away from the carburetor and now they're fuel injected. But 99, 2000, maybe 2001, they have a single point injection. And then like 2001 or 2002, they switched over to multi-point, which is kind of funny because they had multi-point injection on the KVs. And then they switched over to a single point injection. So if you think about it, a single point injection is essentially an electronic carburetor because it's one injector for all 4 cylinders versus 4 injectors for 4 cylinders. So one injector is fueling all the cylinders, which they obviously, it was a botched idea because they did away with it after a couple years. So if you want to wait a couple years and get the multi-point injection, that might be a good idea to wait. Otherwise, get a supercharged one. Supercharged were multi-point injection. The naturally aspirated sandbars were all single-point injection. So kind of a hokey fuel delivery system in my opinion, but I don't know, they maybe wanted to save money, or it made sense to do one injector, but they obviously, it didn't work that well because they didn't make them for very long being a single point. So they are all fuel injected. Some have one injector, some have four injectors being supercharged. So that is the one thing you don't have to worry about is dealing with a carburetor. Although when you get into the fuel injected zone, now you're dealing with sensors and computers, which gets a little complicated. So sometimes, in my opinion, the carburetor is way easier. If there's an issue, usually cleaning the carburetor solves the problem and you're good to go. This one, you got to look into throttle positioning sensors, O2 sensors. Is your ECU going out? Your temperature sensor, is it sending the wrong signals? And yeah, it gets kind of tricky, but most of the time they're pretty good. This one, however, had a pretty good misfire when we got it. I say when I helped this individual pick it up from the port, it had a pretty nasty misfire, and I'm pretty sure it's because it ran out of fuel, fouled up the spark plugs, and it had bad misfire. So I did new spark plugs, I did new spark plug wires, and she runs like a dream now. So it just, you never know. It could be something really simple and dumb as spark plugs causing the issue. So that's why I always recommend just do a basic tune-up when you get your sandbar. Spark plugs, spark plug wires, filters, so that's air, fuel, and oil. And usually that's, you're pretty good. And then timing belt service as well. You're going to want to do that, or at least see when it was done last. And that's 10 years or 100,000 kilometers. Not, it was done at 50,000 kilometers. I'm at 55,000 kilometers, but the timing belt was done in 2000. Okay, so it's older than 10 years old. You may not have hit the kilometers, but it's very, very old. So every 10 years, you'll want to do a timing belt, and that's usually how they're done, because most of them weren't even driven that much. So by the time they get over here, if it wasn't done in the last 10 years, it's probably due for a timing belt. And this one was due for a timing belt because it has 50-something thousand kilometers on it. There are no timing belt stickers on this thing, so I would assume that it was not done and it was, ready to be changed. And when I did change it, it was a factory Subaru timing belt, so it was probably the original one. And the water pumps usually are pretty nasty and crusty looking, so that's a good indicator if it wasn't done timing belt. The water pump is pretty nasty, because usually when you do timing belt service, you want to do a timing belt, water pump, crank seal, cam seal, and tensioner. Be done with it and not have to see it for another 10 years, or if you happen to drive it 100,000 kilometers, which is, I don't know, kind of rare if you're driving it every day. But yeah, so this one got a full tune-up, plugs, wires, all the filters, and a timing belt service. And then I inspected everything, and I did a thermostat as well. So that allowed me to drain a bunch of the coolant and refill the system with new coolant. So let's go over where kind of stuff is located while I enjoy my Boss coffee from Japan. All right, so first off the bat, you're like, what? That's not a Subaru symbol. So if you pay attention to cars in Japan, we don't do this in the United States. At least I can't think of any examples at this point in time. They had names for all their cars, right? Just like we do. We got names. But they also had different logos for the name. So obviously this is a Subaru, so it doesn't have like the stars and all that stuff. But I'm assuming that's SS for Subaru Sambar. I'm assuming that's what that is. But it is a Subaru. They just gave all their cars different logos. Like Nissan Stagea has like the unicorn head up on the front, or they all had their own logos, which was really unique and cool, because you could look at the logo on the front and be like, oh, that's what that car is. Or a Toyota Crown. It's got a literal crown on the front. So that is, I'm assuming, SS for Subaru Sambar. So that's kind of cool. So they all the old ones have the stars, and now the new ones have like their actual logo for the name. So yeah, our mirrors are different. These ones come off different than the KS and KV, so I did make a video on the 5th generations. But on these ones, this plastic cover pops off, and then you can get to your screws from behind this plastic cover. So a little bit easier to change the mirrors on these ones versus the old ones. Rotors are different, pads are different on these ones, so be sure if you're buying parts, you're buying them for a TT or a TV, because the brake pads and rotors are not the same as your 5th generation Sambars. Same location for the gas cap, but the gas release lever on the TTs and TVs is a little tricky. Usually on the KSs and KVs, it's right here in the center. On these ones, it's right here. So it's underneath your seat. So sometimes it's kind of tricky to find, but you'll find it right there underneath your seat. Then it will release it. This one seems like it's kind of broken. I do sell these mechanisms if you want to replace the mechanism. This is the same as the KS and the KVs as it is the TTs, but the gas caps are different. They are not the same gas caps. These have your typical thread-on style versus the Sambars, which were like 2 clips that like turn. So that's a little bit different as far as the gas situation goes. Most of them had speakers up in the doors, power windows. I know a lot of the trucks don't have this stuff, but the vans, I feel like the vans typically had front speakers, power windows. I don't know if it's got power locks. Usually if you do so it's got power locks. I mean, some of the old Sambars, obviously the older Sambars had power locks and power windows. It was probably just less rare. I mean, less common to see that in your 5th generations. So obviously this one's going to be completely different because we have this handicap mobility ramp. Let's see if we can get it to work. It'll be kind of fun to show that. So you go inside, and it's all flat inside here. But yeah, it's kind of cool. So you turn the switch on. Obviously this isn't going to help anybody out unless you have one of these. Okay, if the door, I guess this is more for the individual if he's watching this, who bought this van. The door has to be all the way back. If it's not all the way back, there's obviously like a safety switch. All the way back, and now we work. There we go. So that folds down. And then you would take that, that flips out. And then we can go down again. This hydraulic thing's actually pretty strong. It lifts the whole side of the van up if it hits the ground. But yeah, so there you go. We have our ramp down, and then obviously this thing, not sure how that front lip works, but that's how you get the ramp down. Let's make it go up. Obviously watch your hands, you don't want to get sucked into there. Ramp goes up. I mean, this would be cool because if I was loading engines and stuff like that, I would just throw the engine up on the ramp, roll the engine inside, and then we take this, fold this back up, and then it will lock inside there, and then we go up again. I think I freaked it out. Oh, that was weird. I like touched it and it killed it. So it's probably got a pretty sensitive pressure switch. There we go. So it's all the way up. Turn it off. Boom. your engine or human is now inside. Let's turn it off. Oh man. So yeah, that's kind of cool, but typically you would have your seats right here, and then you could fold up your seats and all that stuff. We obviously have a back folding seat for somebody sitting back there. So yeah, unfortunately I don't have what the back would look like. But let's talk about where your radiator's at. So on your 5th generation Sambar vans, that would be, there we go. Okay, so on your 5th generation vans, you would typically have your radiator cap here. But on the 6th generation vans, your radiator cap is, this is also a very bad example too. You can't fold the seat back because it hits here, so you actually have to unbolt the seat. But you would come up here, and this is for the trucks and the vans, TTs, TVs. You would come up to the front, unlatch the seat, then you would fold the seat back out of the way. Then you have access to your radiator. So your radiator is under here. You pop these up. Let's see if I can just pop them up. Yeah, okay. It has like a catch. Those catches there. So those catches slide underneath they slide underneath the body there. So make sure you reinstall that correctly. But there's our radiator cap. So our fill is here, our coolant reservoir overflow is there. We also have a bleeder. I show how to bleed the TTs and the TVs in another video, but it's the same way. There's a bleeder tube here that you have to bleed, and then there's a bleeder in the back. So when you're doing anything with your coolant, thermostat, water pump, be sure, again, watch my video on the, I think I did it on a TT, but again, the TT and the TV are exactly the same. You got one bleeder hose up here that you'll bleed and one in the back. So let's put this back on correctly underneath. It goes underneath the body. There we go. We'll latch the seat back down. Yeah. And then you'll put this back up. One of the buttons is broken on this thing, but you can, I'll come back to that, but you can snap the carpet back. So yeah, that is where your radiator is at. The radio is different. Our DIN setup is much different. This one is an automatic, so it's going to be different than a manual. You got your like power switch here, which just obviously changes the shifting. And then here's our shifter, kind of weird looking. Some have rear heaters, so this is your switch for the rear heater. The heater's right underneath the back seat here, so if you got a passenger back there, you can turn your rear heater switch on. It's kind of nice. Just like all the other Sambars, you got a pull brake, e-brake. There's your, your dome light, and if it's not working, usually if you take here and swoop it a few times, now it's working. So sometimes the contacts get crusty, so just take it and make it go off and on for a while, and then usually that clears the crusties and it will start working again. Now that's working. It's obviously had some kind of remote control. There's the receiver up there, but I did not see the remote for this thing anywhere, so I'm sure that is gone. But let's go to the back now and see what we got going on. So just like all the 5th generation Sambars, your engine cover, again, this one's a little bit different because we've got stuff going on. Actually, I'll just do this. The engine cover's right here. So same, four bolts. The top of the engine cover comes off. That gives you access to the top of the engine, which is air filter. You can access your fuel filter. Yeah, you can check all kinds of stuff. The back bumpers, however, are a little different than the KVs. On the KVs, you would have to lift up and then let it drop down. These ones, it seems like it just comes out. So these ones you don't actually have to like pull up on and then out, you just pull them straight down. And so we have access to the back, which essentially is almost the same engine. It's just distributorless. So now you just have 2 coil packs on the side. So you can replace those if you want. I do have those. Or you can just replace your spark plug wires with the nice blue NGKs. And I did iridium spark plugs. So we did new spark plug wires and spark plugs. And I did a timing belt service. So again, I made a video on that on a TT, which is the same exact thing as a TV. Same cover, cam positioning sensor, everything is exactly the same and the same process. So I did the timing belt service, obviously, and I did the oil change on it, which, you know, here's your dipstick. Nothing's different than the other ones. Your oil fill, the oil pan, the drain plug, all in the same locations. And so this is another question I get asked all the time. What about these motor mounts? So unfortunately, those bushings are not available for sale by themselves. You could probably do a bunch of research and find what bushing that is, but in the parts diagram, it is not available. The whole entire cross member is the only thing you can buy. So you would buy that entire cross member, which would come with that new bushing. It comes, I believe, with that bushing as well. So yeah, that's kind of the bummer with the 6 generations, is if you want to do that bushing, you either have to do it, make one, or buy that entire cross member to replace that one mount. So yeah, kind of a bummer, but it is what it is. I think that whole entire cross member is like $400 or something like that. So maybe somebody, since now these are starting to become a lot more popular, maybe somebody will find a bushing that fits in that thing and will replace that one. And that essentially would have to be cut out and punched in just like the other ones you do on the 5th generation Sambars. But the taillights are different. They're not the same. They're just more enlarged, but they seem very similar to take off one screw here. It's like you got a screw down there and then they pop off. So very easy to do the taillights on these guys. But yeah, same slider on this side, which obviously normally would have your seats, but this is like a mobility van, so no seats, but very clean headliner. I like this headliner a lot better than the 5th generations. It's like a nice fabric versus the like crappy vinyl. You got like little book pockets in the back. That's nice. No speakers. Some of them had speakers in the back though. There's that rear heater I was talking about right there. Works really good when it's working. If you're looking for your VIN tag, it will always be here, stamped on your door panel, door jamb. Here's the timing belt sticker I put in here. So if this is what you're gonna be looking for, a sticker that looks very similar to this, and it is very, very, very important to pay attention to the year. So it's year, date, and month. Year, month, and day, sorry. Now, in Japan, they typically don't use the same year system that we do. So I put 25 for obviously 2025, but I don't say it properly. Heisei or Heisei. Their Heisei or Heisei years are different. It's going to be H something or R something. So you need to translate. So it may say like 23, but that does not mean 2023. That means like 2011 or something like that. So that's why it's important to pay attention to when it was done and converting the year to the correct year. So you don't go, oh, it was done in 2023. I got another 10 years, almost 10 years till I got to do a timing belt, and it snaps in 1 year because it was actually done in like 2011. So it was way overdue. So yeah, typically that's the timing belt sticker you're going to be looking for. I put an oil change sticker there for him, so he knows when to do the oil change. Let's see what we got. We got kind of, I think these are vents. That's kind of new. I had a guy ask me what that hose was doing. Apparently it just goes in there. It's a little breather or something, so there's nothing crazy with that. But yeah, it looks like I've never done headlights on the TTs, the bulbs I should say, but I'm assuming this one, the cover comes off just like the other ones, and maybe that's how you access that bulb, I don't know. But there's your back cover for if you want to probably change out your bulbs. But yeah, and these have power steering, which is nice too. It's electronic power steering, of course. That's another question I get. Where's the power steering fluid? There's no power steering fluid. Your battery's the power steering fluid. It's all electric. So yeah, that is your TV 6th generation Sambar. A little bit different than your 5th generation Sambar. Body style looks different. Little extra goodies in these ones. But nonetheless, still a Sambar, still fun. It is slightly bigger than a K, older K, but hey, if you want airbags and anti-lock brakes and all that stuff, this one's gonna be for you. So cool. Yeah, here's my boss coffee. Hopefully that was helpful. I'll try to do one on the TT next. I just had a TT. I should have put these together and did another comparison video, but it's been so busy I totally didn't even think about that. But yeah, hopefully that was helpful. If you got questions, you can obviously put them down in the comments and I'll try to respond. But there's a ton of information online, Facebook groups that will have more info on the TVs and stuff like that if you really want to dive deeper. But that's like the basic stuff: radiator, filler, your gas tank, and the release switch, and where your engine and all that fun stuff is at. But yeah, if you need parts, you got one coming, you wanted to tune up, any of that stuff can be found on my website, okgarage.com. The search function works wonders. Just search spark plugs and you'll see spark plugs for the Sambar and all the other ones I sell them for. But yeah, or shoot an email to me and I'll point you in the right direction. But yep, this one was fully serviced and ready to go to Oregon, and this was a fun one, the avocado van. But cool, thanks for watching, guys. I really appreciate it. Like, subscribe if you would like to. Helps me out, keeps me motivated. But yeah, cool. I'll see you guys on the next one. See ya.